Most employers think compensation issues show up basically at exit interviews, but the real damage usually happens weeks or months earlier, after one raise, one promotion, or one performance conversation that doesn't go as planned. It just pops out of the blue. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through what happened when a well meaning raise intended to reward a top performer sparked a resignation spiral, fractured trust, and almost cost the company its leadership bench. All because they didn't have a clear compensation system. Not because they were underpaid, not because they played favorites, but because they couldn't explain why one person was paid what they were. And once that perception gap opens up, it spreads fast. Today, we're going to fix that. You'll learn how to build a compensation structure that holds up under pressure, strengthens your culture, and keeps your best people from quietly walking out the door, while coming up and being able to adhere to new pay transparency laws. I'm Rami Alijil, CEO of People Processes, and this is Don't HR Alone. So here's what happened. Mid-sized company to us, which means about 70 employees, promoted a top performer into a manager role. She was sharp, she'd been with the team for years, and she deserved the step up. Her salary moved from the low 80s to 96,000 a year. Shortly after the promotion was announced, she updated her LinkedIn profile with her new job and told her best friend at the office what the raise was. That's all it took. Someone heard about the raise, someone else checked job boards and Glassdoor, and a third compared it to their own pay, started asking some questions. The senior employee approached leadership and said, "Look, I've been here longer, I manage more people. Why am I making less than her, who's recently promoted up into it?" In that conversation, they did a poor job. They froze. They had no formal salary bands, no compensation philosophy, no documentation that really explained the decision other than she's great and she earned it, was all they really had. They also wanted to find out how you found out what they were paid and who's talking about their pay. And that sort of conversational lead doesn't go anywhere and isn't any good. See, in almost every, well, in fact, across the United States, employees are always allowed to discuss their pay with each other. It's part of union bargaining protections, even if there is no union. It's important that you have to understand that they're allowed to talk to one another. You can't just say, hide this stuff. And in quite a few states, it's gone much further than that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. After not being able to address that employee's concern, within 2 weeks, two other high performing managers resigned. Another came in and asked for a counteroffer. The team's trust was cracked. They weren't dealing with a legal crisis yet, but culturally, the damage was already done. So, if this sounds uncomfortably familiar or potentially like something that happened in your business, go ahead and grab our free transparency starter kit. The link is in the description below. It includes editable salary band templates, a pay audit checklist, compliant job posting language, and a simple compensation philosophy worksheet to kind of kickstart the structure. Trust me, you don't want to wait until the next raise goes sideways. So, go back to the story. When we stepped in, we did what we always do with our complete HR clients. We ran a deep compensation audit. We reviewed every salary by role, geography, and tenure. We looked at offer letters and past raise decisions, and we did some manager interviews and talked to some employees about their sentiment around their pay. We're not just looking for disparities, we're looking for the logic. And honestly, we found very little of it in this client. It wasn't an equity violation. It's not like they were paying all the black people under the white people or the women got less than the men. It just was kind of chaotic. The real reason was a structural failure. There was no system for defending, explaining, defining pay decisions. Raises were based on memory, gut feel, job titles were inconsistent, no one could say how compensation decisions were actually made, more aggressive managers pushed for heavier for raises for their teams, louder employees got bigger ones. It just didn't have much logic to it. And once that perception across the organization shifted, leadership lost control of the narrative. It went from a we do what we can for all of our employees to favorites and we give raises to these people because they, even if they don't do as good of a job, but they ask for it. And it can really open up a can of worms. So here's what we did in just 60 days. One, we helped the leadership team articulate their priorities, performance-based growth, market alignment, internal equity, and created a documented compensation philosophy. That overarching document led to salary bands for each role and level. We defined a minimum, midpoint, and maximum for each of the common roles. We aligned that with geography, industry benchmarks, and the scope differences inside the organization. And then we took that and did a full internal pay audit. We identified 5 primary outliers, 3 underpaid roles got adjusted up, and we froze raises for 2, honestly, that had outpaced compensation, until responsibilities kind of caught up. We're not recommending you fire people you're overpaid. It was more, we recognize these raises need to be put on hold a little bit until they come more in line with the benchmarks. Then we did manager enablement. We trained leaders to talk about pay using clear, repeatable frameworks, and we provided language to address fairness, expectations, and strategy, and not just these are the numbers. Then, and this is important, we looked at their job postings. See, in 5 states, Colorado, California, New York, Washington, Illinois, and more to come, it's required that there be salary ranges on those job ads. And we created a national standard for those remote hires across those areas. It's important to realize that these things are changing quickly. And it's not just when uh, job posts happen. In a lot of states, you actually have to also provide salary ranges on promotions and on offer letters and a few other places. So I want to, we'll circle back to that. The bottom line is we didn't fix a number, we didn't address an individual employee concern. We built a compensation system that earned trust across the organization. So if you're running a business with 10 to 500 employees, especially if you're hiring across state lines, this is the new reality. Let's take a moment to go over that transparency. California, New York, Illinois, Colorado, and Washington already require salary ranges on job ads, pay range disclosures during promotion, and a clear communication of compensation structure. If you have an employee in any of those states, you need to take the time to set this up. If you hire remotely, you're subject to these rules even if you're based elsewhere. And if you're hiring remotely in a different state but they report to someone in one of those states, the law applies as well. Transparency doesn't mean like publishing people's paychecks. You don't need to show everyone what everyone earns, but you do need to define salary bands, justify how offers and raises are determined, and explain how someone progresses within a range. This role pays 70 to 90K, depending on scope, certification, location, and years of experience in there. Not she negotiated them. If 2 employees do similar work but have a $10,000 pay gap, and you can't point to a documented, evidence based difference, tenure, credentials, performance reviews, you're exposed. Good intentions don't prevent lawsuits, documentation does. And it's important to think about, one of the key reasons around all this is kind of generalized pay equity. You're not supposed to discriminate pay based on age, sexual orientation, religion, race, gender, that kind of stuff, right? So if you don't have a discernible reason documented, this is where the compliance part comes in. The assumption is it's one of those things, right? Now, if it's 2 women, age 41, in the exact same type of world, religion, everything else, and they're paid different, theoretically it's going to be very difficult to call that an equity difference. But you do have a cultural issue, which is that if one of them finds out about the other one or someone else in the organization finds out, it can lead to a lot of problems. So you want to try and create a logical system that's provable that will actually help you navigate those things. Because again, all you're relying on is your employees just not talking to one another, which you can't stop. So once that happens, and it will cause a problem. Most of the damage in this pay transparency stuff isn't legal, it's relational. The second someone feels like their pay is arbitrary or secretive, their loyalty shifts. They start listening to recruiters, they stop bringing problems forward, they lose trust in leadership. So I want you to get something like this in place because it'll make a big difference in mitigating the risk of a cultural breakdown across your organization, not to mention the legal and compliance side. The 4 kind of things that come up most often that I hear as problems, we just pay what we can afford, like I can't afford to pay benchmark, so it doesn't matter at all. Without a structured framework, you end up overpaying some roles and undercutting others. This can be very efficient for your pay once you know what you're supposed to do. Maybe you're just a company that pays at the 25th percentile. Those companies exist. In fact, half of companies are below average. So when you do this sort of work and you see that the average role pays $60,000 a year and you guys pay 45, no problem. Now you've got a basis, okay? You're targeting this percentile. It's something to start with. If they don't ask, we don't tell when we're talking about pay. Silence creates assumptions. Assumptions become resentment, and resentment turns into turnover, okay? It's much better to address this stuff up front, and it's amazing because you'll just not have these conversations. They won't come out of the blue, they won't blow you up. It's a lot simpler. Some people are afraid to discuss salary bands at all because they think, well, we're not particularly proud of them, so we don't want to open this can of worms. We don't want to start the discussion. I promise you, your employees are having the discussion. It's their pay. It's why they're there. They love you. They love the work. They wouldn't do it for free. So I promise you, these discussions are occurring among your employees, and you want to be ahead of it. You want to have a company line on this. Okay. Some people, it's just we're too small for salary bands. If you're big enough to promote, you're big enough to explain why. Okay. If you have any sort of hierarchy, employee and manager, it's time to start thinking about this. And then some people say, look, all we do is look at market data. And it's like, that's a policy, that's a piece of it, that's a tool, but policy and an explanation around it and then a structure leads to internal consistency. You need the consistency because without both, decisions are going to look arbitrary. So instead of all that, the best run companies we work with don't just set compensation, they operationalize it, they systemize it. They build a written compensation philosophy, salary bands by role and level, which are transparent, documented, and reviewed annually. They do a pay audit internally to detect inequities before employees do, to look for people outside of the pay bands and why. Basic manager training so that leaders can confidently answer, why does this role pay what it pays? Or why am I paid this? Or why is Sally paid this? And they use proactive communication. Don't wait for someone to demand answers. Launch the system internally before it's needed. If this is keeping you up at night or you know it should be, here's your next step. Down at the bottom in our description, download our free transparency starter kit at the link in the description below. It includes a salary band template, pay audit checklist, a sample compliant job posting language, a quick start compensation philosophy worksheet. And if you're a US based employer with 10 to 500 employees, book a free 30-minute consultation with me. We can discuss this in depth. We're going to look at your current structure, whether it's a spreadsheet, a gut-based process, a tangled mess, and I'll get you 2 or 3 clear actionable steps to start moving forward. Your people aren't just working for the number, they're working for what the number means, and that means it's in relation to the people around them. I'm Rami Aligill. This is Don't HR Alone. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, go out there, have a great day, and get your work done. Talk to you soon.